Good evening, everyone. I'm Mary Hunt from the Women's Alliance for Theology, Ethics, and Ritual, popularly known as WATER. I want to welcome all of you, and I want to welcome in a particular way those who are new to our circle tonight, perhaps have come through RCWP or other groups. We're delighted to have you and hope you'll come again. Let me begin with a land acknowledgement as we do. We at WATER are on Indigenous land in Silver Spring, Maryland. This is the traditional and contemporary land of the Piscataway and Anacostan peoples. We acknowledge the trauma that is deeply embedded in the foundation of this country, and we affirm the right of all persons to bring their whole selves and their whole stories into this space. WATER work is meant to bring about social justice. And tonight, of course, as we face an unspeakable war in Ukraine, I ask you to please take a moment with me just for our silence outside of the context of our meditation, but just for a moment to train our energies for peace. Thank you. So many of us feel so helpless in these moments. You know, you can send money or you can call your congressperson or do whatever. But I happen to believe that in addition to those things and taking nothing away from them, there's also the need for this kind of focused energy that comes through prayer and meditation. So let's hope at least it doesn't do any harm. I guess that's the best you can say. This is our seventh meditation for WATER for the 2021-22 season. And last month, Brad Lutz led us in reflection about finding purpose in identity in times of transition. It was a lovely meditation. He's actually signed up for tonight. I don't know if he's going to get here, but it was really a lovely meditation. And that can be found at www.waterwomensalliance.org under WATER Meditations. And what we do is we tape these and then we put them on there for your future use. And we invite you to use them with your own communities, and they are for you. They're for all of us to use. And tonight I'm delighted that we're being led by Lillian Lewis, and our topic is solitude in the vault. The format, for those who don't know, is that I'll make a brief introduction of our presenter, and then the presenter has 7 or 8 minutes to say something that will spark our contemplation. And then we spend 22 minutes in contemplative silence together. And people sometimes say, well, why do you do 22 minutes? Why don't you do 20 or 25? Or, there's no reason. As my mother used to say, why do puppy dogs have tails? There's really, these are the unanswerable questions. And I think she was right. It seems to work nicely. A lot of people use it in meditation. And you'll hear the gong sound at the beginning and at the end of the meditation. You'll hear the gong. And I would ask you at this point to mute your phone, except for Lillian. Lillian, keep yours open, but everybody else mute your phones in the room and mute your Zoom program. If you do both, you won't be distracted by your own phone, which often happens to me. And you'll also be able to keep a nice clear line for us in our work together tonight. So please mute your phone so you're not distracted yourself, and then just mute your Zoom so we're not distracted either. There are many styles of meditation and contemplation, and I don't pretend to teach what's best for you, but many people say that breathing or having a word or a phrase that acts as a mantra for you can be helpful to move you more deeply into a space of letting the spirit be. The key is that we're doing this together, what Nancy Sylvester, who pioneered this approach, calls communal contemplation and dialogue. And so an essential part of what we do is the dialogue at the end. And I think you'll see that can be a very rich time. And sometimes there's no sharing, although I think I can remember a time when there was no sharing, but sometimes there's very little sharing, sometimes there's a lot, but it's the quality of the sharing that's different. It's not a seminar, it's not a time to dissect poetry. It's really a time to share what emerges for us in the richness of our contemplation. So I think we're ready to start. Let me introduce our speaker. Lillian Lewis, I'm delighted to welcome you tonight. We don't know one another, but we have one thing in common, and that is we both went to Marquette University, although I think you went a little bit before I did. That's where Lillian earned her master's in theology. And she said that that experience, and I'm quoting her, set her course for a lifelong journey, seeking wisdom and the divine face. What a wonderful thing to do with your life, to seek wisdom and the divine face. Lillian Lewis is a Roman Catholic woman priest practicing in Michigan. Her most recent publication was entitled Wisdom in the Wild Woman, Seeking the Sacred Feminine in 2018. And I'm sure people will look forward to that. And I'll put that in the notes. Every time we have one of these, the day following or a couple days following, I send out a little thank you with notes. And I'll put the title of your book in the notes, Lillian, so people might want to look for it themselves.
Thank you.
Lillian's theme tonight is Solitude in the Vault, for which she'll draw on Thomas Merton. And I must say, Lillian, I've thought so much about Merton these days. His book, The Original Child Bomb, sticks in my mind as one of the great works in peace studies. So with that, I hand the floor to you, Lillian, with thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
And I want to thank also your friend Mary, who's going to help with the visual. Mary Krager, who's also from Michigan, will help with the visual when the time comes. So thank you to both of you. But go ahead, Lillian, we're in your capable hands.
Well, good evening. And I want to open with the key question. It's a question that Merton doesn't ask, but Merton answers. How do we get to Easter? Easter's coming up, but how do we get there? It isn't just about an empty vault or an empty tomb with a couple of angels sitting on it. And it's not a Mary Magdalene in the garden. Although these are images and historically with us our whole lives, but how do we, 2022, how do we get to Easter? I want to go off the course just a little bit to say that to deconstruct a little bit about Thomas Merton, because he's such a saint and such a theologian, and it's difficult to tell his dark side. But a little bit of his dark side was that he couldn't find anywhere, if you can believe this, in the monastery for quiet. He was even a bit taken with the people who were doing the making the whiskey cakes or what do you call it, Christmas cakes. He said it made too much noise. The machines made too much noise. So eventually he began looking for a space where he could get a little peace and quiet. And he found it when he was doing research in the rare books vault. And he got into this rare book vault, and of course, nobody was in there, and no one cared about maybe Teresa of Avila's original writings at that time. But he found that it was a place where he could hide out. And but also a little, as time went on, he could feel the womb-like structure moving in on him. And that wombness, what could I say, wombness, brought to mind his early childhood, a time maybe all of us recognize this part of our childhood. It's he got to the point where maybe he was about 7 or 8, 10 years old. You remember the time in our lives when we still believed in Santa Claus? Well, it was at that particular juncture where there was an innocent boy, and he met this innocent boy, and something happened. The plumb line dropped. In other words, he was able to go deeper into the meditation when he found this innocent boy, brought on by this womb-like warmth and feeling in the vault. He kept on going back. He liked being in this vault. So the idea of how did he get to Easter happened when each time he went to the vault, he found a solitude, a quietness where he could drop deeper into meditation. While he was there, his lifelong key question came up, and it comes up over and over again in all of his books. But this book, he was only 31 when he wrote this from the Sign of Jonas. I think it was like in 1953 or something. He was 31, and the question that comes to him in this, after a number of times in the vault, and he's going deeper and deeper, the question is, what do you want? What do you really want? Easter came for him because he found out what he really wanted. He says at 31 years old, all I want is solitude and to be on the inner face of God's jacket. You know, the lapel, he wanted to be under the lapel. So when God lifted his coat up, he would see God's face, and God would see Merton's face. He wanted to be that close. He wanted to be that close to God, where I can see his face. So this may be the lesson, that we have to go to the rare book vault. We have to find some quiet place. Maybe the way Lucy found, in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, she accidentally opened up her grandfather or her uncle's wardrobe and stepped into another world. Maybe we have to get that far away. We have to step into another world in order to drop into our deeper self, in order to drop into a closer relationship with God, in order to awaken this child, this divine child within us. In order to regenerate ourselves, in order to Easter ourselves, renew ourselves. Each time we go to the vault, each time we go to the sacred space, we get a chance, not always, but we get a chance to drop down and find the Easter of ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you, Lillian, for a very beautiful and meaningful reflection tonight. I think you've given us the invitation to drop down and to ask ourselves the kind of questions that Merton was asking. What is it that we need and what is it that we want in order to be able to go to that deeper place? Thank you. And now we begin our 22 minutes of contemplative silence together. Good evening again, and thank you very much to Lillian Lewis for starting us into that period of meditation, inviting us to go deeper. Thank you to Thomas Merton for his insights. And if you'll notice, I put in the chat the explanation of the graphic. The earth as Eucharist, the divine child in its center. Lillian brought this to us. It's created by Tataya Mato, and it is from her book, The Black Madonna Within, which was written in 1989. So that's the information, and we'll send that out with the notes, but it's the earth as Eucharist, the divine child in its center. Thank you for Mary for putting that up for us.